Hello, this is Monica and I'm coming at you today with another jewelry making project. We're going to be making some illusion earrings using some glass pearls, check glass beads, and some bead stringing wire and some crimps. This is the chandelier style. You might want to call it a hoop. It's not really got any drops coming off of it like a true chandelier. So when I do my illusion necklaces, I don't typically use the bead stringing wire. I will use the monofilament cording. But on these earrings, I wanted to give an extra little stability on the dangle for these, so I decided to put them on the bead stringing wire. So now I've made this earring with the large pearl on the inner circle here, this pink pearl, but I'm going to make this earring with that on the bottom, which is the style I normally like to have, but I wanted to show you how they look both ways. I use the size number 2 on the crimp tubes, which are the little cylinders, if you can see that, as opposed to the little crimp beads, which just look like a little silver bead. They're round in shape. I like to use these crimp tubes especially when I'm working with more than one piece of wire, just because when you use the traditional crimping tool, if you can see the U shape here on the back, when you close it, you're going to get a nice U shape, and then you're going to reposition your pliers so that you have an oval shape, which will close that U up. And it gives more security in holding these two wires together versus if I just use a little round crimp bead, I'm going to be smushing it flat. Now you can use these for those crimp beads, however, because they are a lot shorter, being that they are round in shape, they're not cylindrical and long. I just feel like it doesn't lend itself to as much security because it's less space. And here on the bead stringing wire, you can actually see what I'm talking about. See, this would be like a rounded shape. This is your crimp bead, and this is the crimp tube. So it's a nice long cylinder. It's holding the wires a little bit more securely, in my opinion. Since I have this in my hand, this is the bead stringing wire that I'm using. This is the 0.015 inch or 0.38 millimeter. I just used the Beadalon brand, and this is the silver. It's actually called Bright, but it's kind of a nickel finish type of a silver. And this is your standard metallic look to go with most of your findings that you see in fashion jewelry. And I'm just using the basic 7-strand wire. If you don't know the difference in the strands, they start out at 7. They can go to 19, 21, and 49. Here is my second earring to match this first design here, where the pink focal pearl is on the bottom. Instead of grabbing them both at the same time and putting them through, we're going to do each individual one. So I'm going to start off with the bottom one first. So here's the outer. Here's the inner. This wire is closest to me. I'm going to feed this wire in here to the right. I'm going to feed this in to my far side so that these wires are then kind of in between each other on each side. When you look at the loop wires, they're now in between these two tails. We got bunny ears now. So however you can get it in there so that you're happy with the look, that's what you're going to do. Now I need to adjust my size, obviously, because that is way too much. Let's look at our sizes. I think that's good. When I put my finger on my fingernail on all those wires, now they're all lined up. When I go to crimp, this will actually crimp without overlapping any of my wires. So I'm going to take my crimping tool. I've still got my fingernail holding that one side. I'm coming over here and putting this crimp into the back channel. Give it a nice big squeeze. Okay, so it makes sort of a U shape, and see how all of my wires are lined up. Now I want to come over, repositioning my plier to where I'm on top, and I'm going to put this in the front section, which is that oval shape, on either side of my U shape, and this is what I like to call closing the sandwich. Just give it another squeeze, and you got to give it a really good squeeze because there's so many wires in there, because technically now you've got 4 wires in here even though you only had 2 wires. Okay, if you want to, this is where my bent nose pliers come in. Give it a little extra push. Go ahead and put the bent nose plier on either side of that sandwich. Give it a nice good squeeze. That further tightens it up. These little extra wires, we want to trim those off. So I do them one at a time. I will kind of bend it just a little bit so that I can come right up to the crimp tube. The back side, give it a squeeze to trim it off, because you don't want these sticking out like this, because then it's ugly. But also you want to try to cut as flush as you can up to the crimp, because when we put our crimp cover on, it will hide that and there won't be any little pokey bits stuck out. So again, just kind of lightly bend this up. It just kind of helps you get your flush cutter up where you need it. So now this side is cut off as well as I can get. Turn it around and do the same thing on the other side. So the next step of this is to put your crimp cover on so that we can hide that crimp. This is that Stardust crimp cover. Balance that in there with the sandwich side up. Take your bent nose, give it a squeeze. Poke it down if you need to, but we're not trying to flatten this. We need to attach the 2 tiny little jump rings. So now this is where you'll need your bent nose pliers and your flat nose pliers. I like to do all the movement with my right hand. So flat nose pliers are in the left, and they are holding right here on the left of the slit. The flat nose pliers are not going to move. I'm going to do the movement in opening the jump ring up with my bent nose pliers, and I'm just going to push it away from myself just like I would be opening a door. So with my right hand, I'm just pushing it forward. You don't want to open this side to side, because if you do that, it will distort the jump ring. I'm just coming over here on one side of the crimp cover that we just put, holding again with the left. Because I pushed forward, now I'm just going to pull back towards myself to shut the door. And make sure that you get those lined up. You can come over the top with your flat nose pliers to give it a little squeeze. Sometimes you might hear the jump ring give a little pop noise. That's how you know it's closed. You don't want any kind of gap, because if you have a gap, you could lose your earring. So do the same thing, open it. So I'm pushing it away from myself. I'm going to come over here on the other side, because this is going to hold your little crimp cover area. Just pulling that back towards myself, come over the top and give it a squeeze. Now I've got a jump ring on either side of my crimp cover. Now I'm going to take this larger jump ring. I'm doing the same process to open it. Sometimes, depending on what you're working with and the size of wire, so if you use a thinner gauge wire, maybe you use a 0.18, or you do a thicker gauge, you do like a 0.12, whereas I'm using the 0.15 or the 0.015. Your crimp cover and tube and all that stuff might sit differently, but when you get to this stage here, you've got to decide, which do I want to be the front of my earrings? And I'm going to grab this. This is another balancing act. And then I'm also going to grab the second jump ring over here. It's going to come in front of that crimp cover like a bead cage. So see how this one is doing? That's what I'm going to do here. And I'm going to have it do that because of the way that this wire is laying. So then I'm going to close it up. Just push it away from myself and give it a squeeze. You just need to open up the bottom of these ear wires by, I do it upside down. I push the ball down with my fingernail, and then that exposes the little neck here of the loop. That way I can see which one has the cut, and just the way that I opened and closed the jump ring is what I'm going to do here. So it looks like I'm opening on the right hand side, and this way I'm going to pull it up towards myself, and I've still got my fingernail on that little ball. Put the earring up by the jump ring, and when I put this on, I want to keep in mind which way is the front of the earring. You can see that the hump of the ear wire is on the back here, but when I go to hang this on something, it's going to be in the right position as it would be if it was hanging out of my ear. And since the front of my earring is going to be right over here, the way that I've got it hanging, that's how I'm going to attach it to that loop. And then just balance it precariously so that you can come over here and close the loop. Now since it's in the upward position, I'm just going to close it in the downward position. And you want to be sure it's touching. You can also give it another little squeeze there to make sure that it's all closed up. That way, whenever you are looking at it, it's got a nice little frame, it's holding everything correctly, and it looks nice and pretty. If you have a problem, like this one kind of got a little bit wonky on me as I moved around, where the wire kind of wants to pop up and over. That's where, when you're doing your crimping process, when this can kind of get a little bit messed up, keep that in mind. Make sure that your wires are side by side, because when you go to crimp this and everything, you might have an issue. Here are the two finished earrings with the pearl on the bottom, and this is the style that I really prefer because I like my focal point to be here on the bottom. But you can really do this however you want to. If you are using glass pearls, you know, if you liked it the other way with the pearl on top of the inner circle, then that's fine too. The whole process with this really only takes you about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how comfortable you are getting your wires through that crimp tube. With me, I've made them a couple of times and I still had an issue with that one where I kind of wanted to change it since it popped up on me a little bit. I hope you've enjoyed this project and have a sparkle-rific day. Bye, y'all!